Kyle Rittenhouse has been found not guilty in the shooting and killing of 2 men and the attempted killing of a third by a Wisconsin jury after 4 days and over 25 hours of deliberations. The panel also cleared him of attempted intentional homicide for severely wounding Gage Grosskreutz, a 27-year-old paramedic from suburban Milwaukee who was there that night volunteering his medical services. Rittenhouse was also acquitted on 2 counts of recklessly endangering safety. I mean, they say there that he's a paramedic, but he wasn't holding an assault rifle, so he doesn't seem like an authentic medic in this context. In any event, we want to show you a little bit from the announcement.
As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the third count of the information, unknown male, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
Members of the jury, are these your unanimous verdicts? Is there anyone who does not agree with the verdicts as read? Would you wish the jury polled?
So bearing in mind that previously they had gotten some sort of length technicality that got rid of the weapons charge, from the perspective of our judicial system, he did nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing wrong. Don't get into his motives. His actions were perfect. He shouldn't have made any different choices. Everything he did is fine. And that is, unfortunately, I think, the lesson that some individuals are going to take away from this. If you had had an interest in grabbing a gun and going somewhere and ending up in some sort of situation, well, you can now be assured on 2 things. You already knew that you'd be able to raise millions of dollars to crowdsource your defense. You'd become a celebrity on the right. And now you've been told by the state that it's probably totally fine legally too. So I know we might disagree about some of the specifics of this, but the incentives that this is providing for more potential vigilantes, and Fox News is doing everything they can every day to encourage more people to do this, is that you do not have to fear legal consequences.
Yeah, so look, there are at least 2 different issues here, and we'll have to talk through both of them at a minimum. I think there's a bunch of other peripheral issues like the world's worst mom. So I want to get back to that later. But the 2 issues are, did the jury rule correctly? And should he have been convicted? Should he have been acquitted in the case as a matter of law? And Morgan, I'm curious about your thoughts on that in a second as well. And then the second issue is what he did okay? Okay, now, if I don't think that it's quite sending the message that John said from a legal perspective. When someone is not proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, that doesn't mean that the state is saying what they did was okay. So O.J. Simpson was also acquitted because they could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did it. It doesn't mean the state of California thought that it was great what O.J. Simpson might have done, okay? Now, I think he did it. And in the case of Rittenhouse, just because he gets acquitted does not mean the state thinks it was hunky-dory. They just couldn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. It's going to lead to the second issue in a second. But why did they rule the way that they did? Well, we told you all along it was a tough case as we were covering it because, look, there was, first of all, the legal standards are really important, guys. And we didn't get this completely right throughout, and I want to clarify it here. Most states say that when you go to a self-defense argument, as Rittenhouse did, the burden of proof then shifts, and you've got to prove an affirmative case of self-defense. That is not the case in Wisconsin, which greatly helps Rittenhouse and makes this ruling even more understandable from a legal perspective. In Wisconsin, you still have to disprove self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt, which makes it much harder. Now, in the case of the first person that he shot, it was Rosenbaum who had thrown a plastic bag at him, but someone had shot nearby. He heard the gun sound, then he apparently thought something was being thrown at him. He kills the first guy. The second guy hit him with a skateboard. Now, I wouldn't kill anyone if they hit me with a skateboard, But I know the right wing, they're very fragile, very weak. And so they think, if you look at me kind of wrong, I'm afraid for my life and I'll murder you. But in the case of the law and the jury here, I don't think the jury is the issue. I don't think that this was an atrocious ruling. I'm curious what you guys think. Because they're put in a situation where one guy, they have to say beyond a reasonable doubt that he did not act in self-defense. I think the real issue is, as a matter of precedent in the country, do we want people walking around with weapons provoking people, and then as soon as they're threatened in any way, start to kill people? Because if this is the standard, we're gonna have massive vigilante violence in this country. So, but before I move on to that topic, Morgan, what do you think about the legal ruling?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right in the sense that we have now put laws on the books all over this country that do green light exactly what you're saying, vigilante justice. We have individuals that are serving as the jury executioner all in one based on some kind of feeling that they're having. And so that's not exactly the jury's fault. That's a problem of our legal system. And these types of inconsistencies, one, are what continue to breed extreme distrust of our justice system. But then also, yeah, I think this is a scary moment where we continue to unleash people who believe that they can take matters into their own hands based on their individual impression of any given perceived threat of danger. That's really, really scary.
Yeah, the whole thing, look, I care about the implications of this far more than the individual details of the particular case, but this leaves us with 1,000 interesting questions. So if it's just self-defense in the first case, so someone shoots nearby, so he gets to kill someone nearby. So you can just carry a gun, and anytime you hear a loud noise, you get to shoot someone. Like that's insane. You should have to prove that there was a good and then after he shoots the first person, anyone else nearby with a gun would have presumably heard that shot, so they get to shoot someone that's standing near them too. This is insane. And one of the most frustrating things for me about the right-wing response to this is many of them will immediately say, well, it's self-defense, it's law. You are not allowed to express any issue with the way self-defense is defined generally in this individual state, the way that it's adjudicated, who generally gets to use that defense. And we're just supposed to take it as given. We're supposed to just accept that the law as written is obviously right. It's not designed, nor in effect does it have particular outcomes. And we're being told this, I tweeted something to this effect earlier, by people who've spent the last half century trying to strip away women's reproductive rights. They've never just complied with the law and thought, well, if it's the law, then we can never question it whatsoever. We can never wonder if it should be the way it is. And here, it's just the law. Everyone shut up. And let's only focus on the last 30 seconds. So anything before 30 seconds before he started killing people, you can't question. So you can't show him talking on video about how he'd like to kill someone. You can't wonder why he would bring a gun to this sort of situation. Why did he have to be there in the first place? What media had he been consuming that was encouraging these sorts of vigilante things? You should only pay attention to the 3 or 4 seconds before the shot, and that's it. Well, I'm sorry, I can't be so idiotic as that. I have to wonder what went into it, what decisions were made, and whether it's the law in Wisconsin that you should consider that or not. I think we should. And I would say, by the way, they generally don't want you to think about any of this stuff, and yet they've all settled on this bizarre, not even legal argument, because they'll never be explicit about it, that you should not be bothered by the murders because, hey, it turned out 1 or 2 of the people he shot had done bad things. Never mind that he didn't know about that. Never mind that even if he did, he doesn't get to just execute bad people when he comes across them on the street. But they think the motivations of the people who died should go into our evaluation of this, but not the motivations of the guy who took a gun he never should have had across state lines and went to this protest. All of that is worthy of at least discussion and possibly legal reform, I think.
So now let me fully agree with John on the societal points at play here. So first of all, guys, think about one of the points that John just made. So it's self-defense. If you hear a gunshot, you could just turn around and shoot someone. Well, then under that theory, someone nearby could have shot Rittenhouse and said, well, I heard a gunshot and he had a gun. So Rosenbaum didn't have a gun. He had at that point, he didn't even have a plastic bag. He'd already thrown it.
Yeah.
So he had no weapon at all, and a jury just ruled it's self-defense to shoot that unarmed man and kill him. Okay, because you heard a gunshot. Well, a lot of people heard Rittenhouse's gunshot. Could they have just executed him on the spot? And the answer is yes, according to the ruling we just had. If you hear a gunshot, now, what if the person you're shooting is a cop? What if you heard a cop shooting, but you didn't bother looking, and you just turn around just like Rittenhouse did? You just turn around, boom, execute the cop. Well, you heard a gunshot, that's self-defense. Okay, and guys, the skateboard, it's insanity. The one good job that the prosecution did was in the closing argument when they said, does anyone else have a right to self-defense? Or is only the person with the weapon allowed self-defense?
Well, one of them had a gun, so presumably only the person with the biggest gun has a right to self-defense.
Yeah, so did that guy have a right to self-defense as Rittenhouse was literally shooting him, right? Then the guy with the skateboard, did he have a right to defend himself from, he heard shots, right? Just like Rittenhouse did. They say Rittenhouse can kill someone if he heard shots. Well, Huber heard shots and he was defending himself with a skateboard. So does he have no rights at all? Does that mean as a society now, and the gun manufacturers are gonna be thrilled with this decision. Does that mean as a society now, we all have to be super heavily armed? Otherwise we lose the right to self-defense and we could be killed at any time. This just became an incredibly scary country.
Yeah.
If it wasn't already very scary to begin with Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman, and countless other cases. Morgan.
Well, yeah, and just a lot of the names that are coming to mind for me as we're looking at what are our laws on the books, what are we allowing, what do certain laws open the gateway to? I mean, Tamir Rice, Tyrone King, Henry Green, people who have been killed in Ohio. In interactions with law enforcement that have also been justified to an extent by the laws on the books. And what is the end result of this? It is chaos. We are living through chaos, and that is no way to run a country. But it is exactly the plan of people who profit off of that chaos.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, John.
The way that I forget who put it this way, but the way I read it was the last person alive is innocent. That's what it is. You better be the last person alive, and then you were the one defending yourself. Everything else is just collateral damage along that path.
Well, John, let me agree further with you. So everybody saw Rittenhouse crying on the stand, and everybody wondered, is it real, is it fake, et cetera. But there was a lot of people had sympathy for, oh my God, the poor kid. Well, how about Huber? So he never got to cry on the stand because he was murdered, or now killed, officially killed, not murdered. And so you never got to see him crying. You never got to see him do anything. He was killed as a young man in the streets because a maniac was running around with an AR-15 shooting anything that he perceived to be a threat after he started going in there, in my opinion, with the confrontation of bringing in weapons to a protest in the first place, right? So now that leads us to two other things. Just let me dispense with this real quick. The mom is the world's worst parent. She drove a 17-year-old with an AR-15 into what she perceived to be a dangerous riot. Oh, you want to go into the middle of a dangerous riot, my 17-year-old son? Here, I'll drive you across state lines to do it. Oh, here's an AR-15, so in case a butterfly floats by, you just murder everyone, okay? I'm sorry, kill everyone, okay? She's a despicable parent.
Yeah.
No sane parent would ever do that. But the right wing in this country is crazed. They're crazed. They can't wait to shoot people, which leads me to the biggest culprits of all, the Rittenhouse fans or supporters. Yes, that includes all of them. All of the Alex Jones, the Tim Pools, the Joe Rogans, the millions of crazed Rambo wannabe right-wingers in this country who are like, oh yeah, why don't I just bring weapons? Self-defense, murder, 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 murder. They just want to kill. So they go into the middle of protests with these goddamn weapons, looking to pick a fight, and then the minute Rittenhouse actually shoots these people, they're ecstatic. They love that he killed them. They love that he killed them. That's why they're his fans. What is there to be a fan of? If the shoe's on the other foot, and some guy goes into the middle of a right-wing protest with an AR-15 and he's progressive. And he goes, oh well, they provoked me. Somebody threw a plastic bag, the other one did a skateboard, so I killed him. I don't become a fan of that guy.
Yeah.
I don't become a fan of that guy. I say that's insane to go in the middle of a protest with an AR-15 looking to pick a fight so you can kill people. But the right wing in this country is steeped in violence. They're soaked in blood and they can't wait to kill. So guys, America, I hate to say it because I love this country, but America has now become a super scary place where people are constantly killing each other and getting away with it.
Yeah, and it's by the way, it's convenient for the right because look, just today, you will be thinking about this and not about the fact that the House passed Build Back Better. So the fact that you might save $1,000 a month on insulin, they don't want you thinking about that sort of thing because it might lead you to believe that the government can make your life better, that perhaps it owes you something. And generally, you should be terrified. You should be terrified. We're gonna tell you all the people you should be scared of so that you will never, ever again think about your economic situation, how the government has failed you, and why, who it's actually serving. They love the focus on all of this stuff. They scare people like Kyle Rittenhouse constantly with their nonsense and then use the murders of people like him to scare you further. Now we're gonna be talking about both because we have an obligation to. We believe that there is some sort of ethical obligation when you're involved in journalism, but they don't. They love the idea that you will just constantly be lusting for blood, terrified, jealous, suspicious. That's what they want. They turn people into these crazed, bloodthirsty, terrified individuals, knowing that that sort of population is never gonna pose any sort of risk to the most powerful and wealthy people in this country.
Well, that's the exact dynamic we have here in Ohio. I mean, on the other side of this Republican Senate, on the Republican side of the Senate race, JD Vance, Josh Mandel, I mean, these are people that are just stoking the fire of this hatred and violence and suspicion of people around you and using it for their own political gain. So, I mean, that's the stakes of things in Ohio. We have a lot of these same types of laws on the books, and it is a scary time, and why the Senate race is so important.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.